Hi, I'm Paul Mason and welcome to my latest update about the clusterfuck that is Brexit and my thoughts about how we get out of this. The latest is Theresa May lost her deal in Parliament. She had one job, 2 years to do it, but she lost it by the biggest majority ever lost by a British Prime Minister. And after that the Tories said, well, we'll keep you in power, we love you really. And let's understand why that's happened. It's not just because we've got a fixed term Parliament Act that says they can't just hold an election. It's because for 40 years we've had this free market system and it's failed. And if there's a change of government, that change of government will bring to power a party that is pledged to end the excesses of free market capitalism and the rule of bankers and property speculators and hedge fund guys and yacht owners will end, and nurses and domestic care workers and students and elderly people will have a government that represents them. That is what cannot be allowed, and that's why, despite defeating her and almost overthrowing her within her own party, the Tory MPs are keeping themselves in power. Well, it will not work, because what we're about to see is a period of interregnum in which the MPs talk and the parties talk about something that isn't Theresa May's deal, but something closer to a kind of Norway style staying in the European Union with a few tweaks. And I predict this will come to nothing. First, because there's probably not a majority for any kind of softish Brexit in Parliament, and second, because a soft Brexit is so far from the fantasy sold to the British people by the hard right Tory party that they're just not going to accept it. In fact, no form of Brexit that is possible is actually supported by people who want Brexit. And that tells you, as President Macron said the other day, it was always a fantasy. Now, how do we move on from that? 2 or 3 weeks of negotiations, this vote, that vote, it comes to nothing. Unfortunately, if you don't like elections, I'm sorry to say one is on the way. It doesn't matter that the Tory MPs and the DUP kept Theresa May in power in this vote of confidence. Eventually, Parliament will run out of road, and what does that tell you? If the government can't do Brexit, it was elected to do Brexit. If Parliament can't deliver Brexit, it was told to do Brexit by the referendum. That means the moral authority of that Brexit referendum is evaporating. And we need to move on. And the form of moving on is a vote. And you can either have the vote in an election that takes 4 weeks to organise, or a second referendum that takes probably 6 months to organise and, by the way, will allow no-deal Brexiteers, the far right, the neo-fascists, to pump your television every night with racist propaganda. And I think we might actually end up there. And here's why. Because Theresa May still wants to cling to power. She does not want to do that one thing that a serious politician should do, take responsibility for something. So she will try and palm off the problem of having failed to the British people. Now, if we get a second referendum, it is going to be brutal. The far right will be out there. The dark money from America, from Russia, and who knows where else will pump in. Facebook will give it a great big boost into your cell phone and onto your computer screen, and yes, there'll be a world of pain in which lie after lie is pumped into the public domain. But we, the progressive half of British society, can win a second referendum if we're prepared to say the European Union's not perfect, we want to reform it, so remain in reform, and if we're prepared to say, unlike last time, that what is being done in the name of Brexit is against the national security of this country. It is a plan to break up Europe. It is a plan to flood British and other democracies with lies, with fake news, with ignorance, with prejudice, and our interest in a reformed European economy, the biggest economy in the world, as a market for our goods, as a place that our young people can go and work, as a place that can go on holiday without having to queue in a separate queue, is aligned to our interest in having a strong democratic place between us and Vladimir Putin. That is a no-brainer, and I think in a second referendum we can win that message. So it's not over. There are some painful days to come, but we in the Labour movement will keep faith with the working class communities that voted leave, the people all over the place that voted leave. They had a perfect right to, that some of them had very good reasons to. It's just not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it will be so soft to drive the far-right crazies and the nationalist neo-imperialist crazies even more crazier than they were before. We'll try and keep our heads, we'll try and deliver a solution. Above all, we're going to do it democratically, either through an election or through a second referendum. We will let the British people decide what the final outcome of this crisis is going to be.